demo to disc. This is Anatomy of a Song. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Anatomy of a Song, where we explore a song's journey from inspiration to composition to recording to release. I'm your host, Greg Smith. This is part 2 of our conversation with Ali Sharif, composer, producer, and performer. And in this part, we talk about the process of creating his song, Down, Down, Down. So in this podcast, we like to break down a specific song. So you and I talked a little bit before the interview started, and there's a song that you want to talk about called Down, Down, Down. So
Yeah.
let's start with the basics. Where'd the idea for the song come from?
Uh, well, I grew up in a political family. My father was a political strategist in Newark. Um, I worked alongside of him for many, many years, running campaigns, doing political strategy. And what was really important in our family was an understanding around how you treat people and what you do as a responsible member of your community. And when I started writing this song, I was looking around at the world and particularly at this country, and I was like, oh man, it's untenable. And what can I do? What can I say as a musician that speaks to that in a way that is consistent with who I want to be and who I was taught to be by my parents and the people that I respected in my kind of close community and family circle. And so I think I was walking through Manhattan one day, and these words just came to me, and it was a matter. Actually, I was coming from a place called Cielo, which was a nightclub on Little West 12th Street in New York. There was a party on Wednesday nights called Roots, hosted by Louis Vega and Kevin Hedge, and I went to that party for 15 years.
Wow.
Every Wednesday night. It was kind of my release. And I was coming out of there, walking through Manhattan, I was like, oh man, I love this music, and there's got to be a way that I can say what I feel about what's happening now through this music. And that's kind of how it came about. And I guess by the time I got to my car and then got home, I had written the lyrics. They were done.
So specifically, you've written the lyrics. You're writing them in your head as you're driving along.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll share something that I do, and it leads to the question, which is that I find I do some of my best writing in the car. I live about 10 miles outside of town. I live up in the Georgia mountains, and there's a town about 10, 12 miles away. And so it takes about 15, 20 minutes to get there in these little 2-lane highways, which is a beautiful drive. But it's funny. The ideas will sometimes come to me, and now I'm going to, tell a bad story myself. Kids don't do this at home, but I will actually have my phone with me, and I've got a voice memo app, and I'll reach over and I'll click it, and I'll say 2 or 3 lines that just popped into my head, and then turn it off, and then a mile later another line will come, a rhyme or something. So I'm sometimes do this actively while I'm driving, and I do it because I'm stupid, because I'll forget the lines when I get home. But when you got home, you remembered these lines.
I did. I got home, and I was living on I was living on 7th Avenue between 113th and 114th Street.
Mm-hmm.
And I had put a studio in the back room there. So as soon as I got home, I guess it must have been like 2:30 in the morning or something. I went straight to the back room, and I fired up the rig, and I started some drums, and once the drums were done, I just kind of put a vocal track there, and I just sang them, and that was the first iteration of the track.
This is the rhythm of change. This is the sound of redemption. This is the way that we bring it down.
I knew my voice wasn't the voice to be on there, but at least I had the idea down, and I had it down in a framework that contextualized what the lyrics were about. So yeah, and then I went to sleep.
So how did that change over time? How did the song change over time? You did drums, you did vocals, and how did the song then progress from there?
Next time I got back in the studio and pulled it up, I listened to it. I'm like, okay, I'm really digging this. So what do I want to do with it? And and then I refined the drums, and then I started playing chords and other sounds and bass and all that other kind of stuff. And it went through, I don't know how many iterations of it went through, and partly because I didn't have the grounding force of the song yet, which was a voice that really spoke to what the lyrics were saying. And so I was kind of floundering around trying to do that. It's like, where am I gonna find the right person to do this? And I had a pretty nice community of musicians and vocalists, and I had one woman who I had worked with for a very long time. But I wanted a male voice on this, and I didn't know where it was. So I went through a lot of iterations until I found that voice. And then the thing just changed and became what it is. That voice really kind of cemented the ideas for me.
That was finding the voice that really helped um, lead to a conclusion or a clarity for you.
Yeah, because it's a dance track, it's a house track, but
Yeah,
it's a house track with a message. And so I was walking a fine line of trying to say something that I really felt important about in terms of our social condition,
yeah.
but also not pulling you so far out of wanting to dance and feel good and feel community and spirit and all that other kind of stuff. And part of it was the lyrics, but the other part had to be, for me, the quality of the voice, um, uh, and the ability for that voice to cut through in a way that expressed joy, but also brought attention to what I was trying to say.
I can't deny what I see, what I see. I can't deny what I see, what I see. In the darkest time, we will rise.
This is the rhythm of change.
In the darkest time,
This is the sound of redemption.
we will rise.
This is the way that we bring it.
In the darkest time,
This is the way that we bring it down,
we will rise.
down, down,
I can't deny what I see, what I see.
down, 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 down,
I can't deny what I see, what I see.
down, down.
And when did you know? When did you know it was done,
Oh my God. Um,
or is it?
yeah, it's done. It's done. It's now on Spotify, and I put it out. It's like, okay, I got to finish this thing, because I put it down for a couple of years, and I didn't touch it. I was like, okay, I really love this song, and I'm not really doing justice to it. So let me leave it alone. And kind of what we talked about before, let me stop pushing it, because I appreciate what I've been able to say so well that I was pushing it. So I set it down for a couple of years, and then we moved to Savannah, and then I got busy with work and family and all that stuff. And then when I picked it back up, I saw or heard the kernels in there, and wound up stripping it down a little bit, and then finishing the mix, because the track was pretty much done. It was just overcrowded with a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I had to remove a lot of that stuff and then let the song shine. And I like what we finally came up with. Yeah.
You just said something interesting about, there was too much in the song. It got crowded. And I was actually working in my studio here last night with my drummer and brought him in to play on some tracks. And I was playing the track without the percussion at first. And we talked about the process a little bit. And I said, when I'm doing a song, I tend to put more stuff in it than it needs. And I know that I'm doing that at the time because then I can pull back. And I find it's easier sometimes if I throw too many things into a rough track and then I can pare it back rather than sit around and struggle with, oh, does it need this? And trying to figure out what it needs next. If something inspires me, just throw it in there and then knowing that I'm going to pull it back. Do you do that in your process as well? It sounds like you do.
I do that all the time. I do that all the time. I will, I'm doing that right now, actually. Before we got on the call, I was working on something, and I've got these percussions in there that are really cool. I mean, they're cool and they work, but within the context of everything else that I want to say in the song, some of it was too much. So I muted this track. Oh God, it's so much more open now. Muted this track. Oh my God, now
Yeah.
it's breathing. And to let the track breathe, I kind of look at it like their lungs expanding and contracting and expanding and contracting, and some of the other stuff that that's in there sometimes adds a gurgle to the lung sound, right?
Yeah.
And so now you can't hear the full breath because you're hearing this gurgle. So let's get the gurgle out of the way and let's just hear the full breath.
This is the rhythm of change. This is the sound of redemption. This is the way that we bring it. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Igniting the fire within you. Exalting the melody of freedom. These are the things that will bring it down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down.
Okay, so that's a little bit of the finished version of Down, Down, Down. Tell me what you're working on now.
I'm working on a track yet to be titled. This is one of those things where I work on just the music. I'm working on just the music now.
Mhm.
I'm looking for a certain groove. In the genre of house, in the larger genre of house, there are a bunch of subgenres. There's tech house, there's Afro beats, there's Afro house, there's classic house, and there's classic deep house. And so I wanted to write a classic deep house music, which is, if you kind of go into the anatomy of a deep house track, it's minor seventh chords and simple bass that pushes the groove forward, open drums, sometimes a snare on the 2 and 4, sometimes not, and that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out now, whether I want to keep it. And this song is really about a celebration of deep house, which in the pantheon of what is termed house now is being lost. That classic deep house, deep dark minor seven chords, and so I wanted to do something like that, which I hadn't done before, and I don't have a title for it yet. Don't know whether it's going to have lyrics yet, but it is like a celebration of that classic, deep house vibe. And so that's what I'm working on now.
So you say you don't have a title for it. You haven't come up with the lyrics or identifying,
I
words.
don't. I've been playing with lyrics, and the more I play with them, the more I'm tending towards it not being a melodic vocal, but more a spoken vocal,
Yeah.
uh, where where the message is around a love of deep house and how you feel. Those of us who really gravitate towards this style of music, how we feel on the floor, how it's about community, how it's about love, how it's about a sense of spirituality where you can see someone across the dance floor who you haven't seen in a long time and you're just running over and all you do is hug them. And the music is playing and the entire crowd is undulating to the same rhythm, but there is an almost tribal nature to it. And so, that's kind of my favorite to dance to. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. All of the kind of more poppy stuff has been played, and the dregs of us are left at 2, 3 in the morning, and then DJ puts on something really deep, and you just kind of lose your mind. And that feeling, when I was going to the club on Wednesday nights, like I'm in my 50s, right? And I'm dancing like a maniac, and that feeling would sustain me for the rest of the week. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to replicate that feeling that I had leaving the club at 2 o'clock in the morning, or being in the club at 2 o'clock in the morning, and
Yeah.
just being sustained by this unbelievable sense of community.
That's awesome. So you don't have a label for it, but we all have labels for demos that we put in our thing. And this is kind of just a little housekeeping thing that I find interesting because I always give my songs some sort of title, anything. Like one of my songs I called Green, just and that's actually that song specifically that carried through, and that actually became the release title of the song. But 99 times out of 100, it isn't that. But it's like a shoehorn or a doorknob or something like that. Do you have a way of identifying your demos so that you can come back to it and know
I
that?
do. I just looked while we were talking. I just went over to the computer and looked at the title, the working title that I have in there, and the title is "Deep in Your Love."
Cool. See, there you go. So let's tell people where you can find your music.
Well, I've got 2 tracks on Spotify now, and I'm finishing up. I've got 3 other tracks that are 99% done. I got to go back and tweak them, master them, and my goal is starting next week to put out one every 4 or 6 weeks, every one of those threes, and then I'm working on 2 more now. And so I'm in this place now where I've got all this music that has been done, and I refuse to say it was done, but now it's time to say it's done. And so
Yeah.
now I'm going to start shooting them out.
And what are the two on Spotify? Down, 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 and what's the other one?
Oh, it's called Psych and Sound.
And that's on Spotify.
That's on Spotify too, yeah.
Well, Ali Sharif, and I'm going to spell the name so they can find it on Spotify. It's Sharif, last name, Ali Sharif.
That's right, yeah.
You can find his stuff on Spotify. He is an incredibly talented musician. I count as my privilege to count him as a friend and somewhat of a mentor and a guiding light at times in my life. And I'm a fan.
Same here, brother.
So thank you very much for joining us on Anatomy of a Song. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Okay.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah. Peace. Be well.
Down, down, down. Down, down, down.
And that's our episode for today. My thanks to Ali Sharif. And check out his latest release, Down, 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 on Spotify or wherever you listen to your music. Anatomy of a Song was written and produced at The Sawmill in Blairsville, Georgia. As always, feel free to contact me with your questions and/or your thoughts on your own composing and recording process. Our email address is, it's one long word, anatomyofasongpodcast@gmail.com. I'm your host, Greg Smith. We'll see you next time on Anatomy of a Song.
Let's bring it down, 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 down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like?